We're getting real spooky today, so if you get scared easily, make sure you're not wearing your favorite pair of underwear because you will be putting some wet spots in those things. So, today I wanted to go over and talk about the stairs in the woods phenomenon. But I'm sure you recognize this image, even if you're not familiar with the story it's usually connected to, because this picture has been so overused on the internet at this point. It's like a trucker using the glory hole in a gas station bathroom. It's dang near been abused at this point. But anyways, going back to the story that it's connected to, typically, I'm of course referring to I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. I have some stories to tell. Uploaded by user Search and Rescue Woods on No Sleep 7 years ago. So I guess you could say I'm a bit late to the party, but I'm still going to blow my kazoo nonetheless. But anyways, I wanted to go over this story and sort of how it connects in with the missing 411 stuff, and also talk about the stairs in the woods. Now, I'm not going to be diving into this story either, because there are so many parts to it, and this part one alone is pretty freaking long. I actually found a master list somebody made of all the stories that this author has written, because I hate to burst your bubble so soon, but the stories about the stairs in the woods are not real. They're fictional. They're written very well, very good. You know, some of my favorite stories I've ever read on the internet, but they aren't real. I just had to get that out of the way. I had to rip the band-aid off real fast. I didn't want to lead you with any false hope. I'm not going to tell you Santa Claus is real any longer. So these are all the stories they've written in total. These aren't all connected to the search and rescue stories. They do have them marked as SAR story for if they are connected. So the original little thread is parts 1 through 7, and then it goes all the way down. They have a final update, and then even after that, there still are some, I don't know if these are spin-offs. I'm not familiar with these stories. I've only read from part 1 to the final update, so I've read 1 through 8. I haven't read these ones. I haven't read Late Night Anniversary, Molten, all these extra. There are an insane amount of stories to connect all this lore together. It is absolutely insane. And plus, on top of that, they've written clearly many, many more stories that I'm sure are magnificent, because this SAR Woods person that writes these stories is an insane author. But anyways, now that I've given you a lore update, a little bit of an anime backstory, I wanted to go back to the stairs in the woods and tackle this topic first. So, this, of course, is the most popular image of the stairs in the woods, like I said, but on the Reddit thread here, we do have somebody that explains these pictures are from Observatory Sculpture Trail Forest of Dean Observatory. I cannot speak. I swear to God, I read it like a second grade reading level. By Bruce Allen, commissioned for the Sculpture Trail in 1988. Staircase like structure of blackened construction set in a glade amidst fairly young beech trees and stand out beside a... I cannot speak. I'm just going to stop reading there. I'm embarrassing myself. I'm going to act like English isn't my first language. Like, oh, eigo ga hanashimasen. Okay, but anyways, these are a staircase that were commissioned for an art sculpture type thing. They're not just a random staircase in the woods built by a monster man that steals children. So, now that's a good segue to go over to the stories. I have some notes written down about a couple of the stories from SAR Woods that I wanted to tell you so you can be a little bit familiar with the search and rescue stories that they've written. So the first missing persons report that the SAR Woods person wrote about was a family that were out berry picking, and then their son and daughter both went missing. Now, I don't know if they bring up the ages of the children, but they were very young, and then the daughter was eventually found, but the brother wasn't. And when they asked her where her brother was, she said that the bear man with a weird face came out of the woods and gave her brother a little piggyback ride and then walked off into the sunset with him. And then they dispatched a huge search party to try to find this kid because they thought he got abducted or something, like some weird hairy man that looked like Sasquatch, probably a Discord moderator, came out of the woods and snatched up this kid. But they found absolutely no trails of the kid, nothing signifying that he'd ever even been there, and the kid was never found. So that first little missing persons report was better than 99% of the stuff I'd ever read on r/no sleep, so I naturally had to keep reading. I was like Mr. Krabs taking his first dose of ketamine. I just had to get more. So I kept reading, and then this was like the second or the third missing persons report in their first part update. It was a girl that climbed up in a tree while she was out in the woods with her mother and her grandpa. And then she just climbed up to the top of the tree to get a better view of the park, I believe it said. But she never came back down. and her mom and grandpa stood there at the bottom of the tree for hours, yelling her name, asking if she was still up there because they didn't know what happened to her. They'd been at the bottom of the tree the entire time, and she never came back down. So where did she go? She's not Superman. She can't just strike a pose and fly away, you know? Something obviously happened to her. But they dispatched another search, and nothing was ever found. They do not know what happened to her. No trace of her, nothing. So I don't know about you, but me personally, that freaks me out, man. Makes my toenails feel weird on my feet. It just gives me a fear of the woods. Like, I was already kind of scared of getting lost in the woods, and I live in West Virginia. I'm surrounded by woods constantly. So this doesn't really help me going out of the house any. Not like I go out much anyways, but this is definitely going to keep me out of the national parks. That's for sure. Now, I'm going to give you one more little story from the search and rescue officer. It's also from part 1, and it is probably the creepiest in my opinion. It's about the man with no face. Now, I don't believe this is the same entity as the bear-looking man that has a weird face. I'm pretty sure this is a different thing. There's a couple of these entities I really can't pin down if they're meant to be the same thing or if they're meant to be different. They do have some of the same attributes if you do go and read this, which I recommend you do, because you're not going to get the full picture just from me ranting about it. It's a very good read or listen. There are people like creepypasta authors that have narrated this. I think Corpse Husband did it. Creepypasta guy, what is that his name? I don't know. There's just different sources of media that you can watch and listen to on this stuff. So this is the missing persons report right here. I'm not going to be reading that whole paragraph. I don't want to steal her words directly. I don't want to straight up, rip them off the page. I'm going to be giving you a little recap from what I read. So this guy said that he teamed up with another SAR officer because they'd had reports of bears in the area. And then they had to go looking for a dude who didn't come home from climbing when he was supposed to because they thought he'd become a bear snack or something. So they had to do a bit of what they call serious climbing to get to where he was. So I guess he was a pretty experienced climber. And then they said they found him trapped in a crevice with a broken leg, and that it was not a pleasant sight to say the least. They said he had a big infection and all this kind of stuff. He'd been there for like 2 days, so he was in rough shape. No food or water or whatever. He might have had some stuff on him, but he was laying there for 2 days with a broken leg that had become infected. But they said they were able to get him into a chopper, and the EMTs said that he was completely inconsolable, that he kept talking and mumbling about how he'd been doing fine, and then when he got to the top, the tippity top of whatever he'd been climbing, that there was a man there who didn't have any climbing equipment, and he was in a parka and ski pants. And the climber with the broken leg said he walked up to this guy because obviously that's pretty intriguing, buddy, how'd you get up here without any climbing equipment? And then when he turned around, he said the guy had no face, completely blank, like a Barbie doll's genitalia area, or Slender Man, just nothing there, completely blank. So he said he went back down, freaked out, tried to get off the mountain as fast as he could, and he fell, and that's how he'd gotten stuck and broke his leg. But hold on to your cocks, because it gets even scarier from there. He says when he was laying there in absolute agonizing pain, I'm sure, because he broke his leg, he could hear this faceless creature crawling up and down the mountain all night long, letting out these horrible muffled screams, which that just paints a horrific mental image. This image of a man in a parka and ski pants with no face, letting out muffled screams, like a dude. Oh my god. I just got like chills in the back of my neck just thinking about that mental image once again. And when I first read that, you best believe I had to change my undies. Oh, baby. So now we're done going over the missing persons reports from SAR Woods. Those 2 or 3 little examples I gave you are a good baseline for what there is to expect and how creepy it does get when you read all of it all at once. It's a mind bender, man. It'll get you. It'll get you feeling at least a little bit of tingles on your neck. Maybe make your hair on your balls stand up. It'll get you feeling some type of way. But now, this is a little bit of an intermission break if you do need to change your undies. They're a bit too sodden. We're going to be talking about the last paragraph of their first post, where they first bring up the mention of staircases in the woods. So they say this is probably the weirdest story they have to tell, and it's sort of an unspoken rule and a regular occurrence, apparently, that they run into on the job, is seeing staircases in the woods. And naturally, when you see something like that, you're going to be very curious, but they say they probably won't say anything about it if you ask them about it, and they've been told to not talk about it by their superiors. So that right there is pretty freaking weird. But they go on to say that it's a pretty normal occurrence that they see at this point. You know, the staircases in the woods are just something that happens in the job. They say they typically only see them when they go like 30 plus miles out into the wilderness is when they start to pop up. Which it is kind of weird that they're only out in the distance. I don't know. It's like maybe someone's practicing their handyman skills, their carpentry skills, building staircases. And they do also, not in this paragraph, but they say that later on, they mention that the staircases range from many different periods of time, like medieval, made out of bricks and stones or whatever, and then all the way up to modern, you know, like carpeted wooden staircases that look like they've been ripped straight out of a house. Like no edgy, like bad breaks on it where they've been ripped out or whatever. Like just, like they've literally been no clipped out of their house. But yeah, the fact that they're told they're normal and they shouldn't worry about them, but then they also tell them that they should never go near them and have anything to do with them, but they should ignore them. That I feel like that's gonna make you want to do it more, you know? Like when you tell a kid, "Nah, don't put your hand in the cookie jar or I'll spank you." It just makes the kid want to do it even more, you know? They're gonna put their hand in the cookie jar and get them a cookie. But if you say, "Oh, you know, have all the cookies you want," they might have one, but most likely it's not going to be that intriguing. I don't know why human beings are like that. It's like we're just wired to be the biggest pain in the butts we can, you know, do everything we're not supposed to just to satiate our own curiosity. But one last thing I did want to bring up about the staircases in the woods before we hop on over to the similarities of this story from the missing 411 stories is this image right here from the TV show called Channel Zero, which is based on creepypastas. Each season is a different creepypasta. And I have watched season 1 and some of season 3 here. And this is just a little thing they use in the show, a staircase leading up to a doorway. And it's just a staircase in the middle of the woods. So, just a little depiction. And they do have these little creepy little goblin little children that kill people. That, yeah, they're not too nice looking. So now I kind of just wanted to connect some dots, you know, put the nipple on the titty, cross some I's, dot some T's, and talk about how the stories from S.A.R. Woods connect with the missing 411 stories written by David Paulides. I'm just going to call him David P, because I cannot pronounce that. So the author of the No Sleep stories, which were originally posted on a Tumblr blog, S.A.R. Woods, did say she was influenced by the stories from David P. that he wrote about missing 411, except hers were obviously based in fiction, and then his are based in reality. You know, they're non-fiction. So most of the stories involve a person going missing for quite an extended period of time. The one I read most recently was a dude who went missing for a little over a year, I think, or it might have been right at a year. But the way he returned had such weird circumstances. Everyone presumed that he was just gone, you know? They didn't find a trace of him. They had no idea where he went. He was just, like, wiped off the face of the earth. It's like he teleported somewhere far away from where he went missing. And then he just comes back with no sense of time whatsoever. He thought he was just, like, the same day that he went missing. He thought it was still that same day, but it was a year in the future. And he, like, just knocked on his front door like it was just another day coming home. And they asked him about, like, what happened, what exactly went on. And he said that he woke up in a field next to, like, a bunch of maps or something in a satchel. It was just super creepy, like, super weird stuff going on. Like, clearly someone did that to him. And he had, like, different clothes on and everything. It was such a weird thing, man. But the fact that most of the questions don't get answered with the missing 411 stories, it makes it even creepier because it lets your imagination run wild and fill in the blanks with all these wacky possibilities of what exactly could have happened. And like I said, I'm not going to be going into it any more than that. I just kind of wanted to rant about it and talk about it because I've been infatuated with this topic for far too long. And I'm not one of those informational YouTubers. You're not going to learn anything by watching my channel. So I thought it was only fitting to do a video like this. I also do want to bring up that there's a bit of a conspiracy with the missing 411 things. This is a system of America's caves on the top. And then this is the national parks, I believe. No, the caves are on the bottom. And these are the missing persons reports on the top. So the missing 411 cases are on the top. And then the cave systems are on the bottom. And yes, right where I live is a big hunk of the the missing persons reports. So if I do go missing from a national park, know that one, I was on drugs because I would not do that sober. And two, that I'm probably hanging out with some bear man or some faceless man. So I'm probably chilling. You know, we're probably vibing up on the top of a mountain or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is a little conspiracy I seen. It's kind of interesting that it does line up with the cave systems. Maybe there's something to be had there. Maybe those, what is that, the Descent? Maybe those Descent monsters are grabbing people and taking them down in the caves. But yeah, this has been a very scuffed episode of Spooky Scary Mysteries, where we raise up the genitalia and dive in the butthole of spooky scary mysteries. Maybe you wet your pants, maybe you got scared, maybe you got a little poo-poo stain in them undies. But anyways, other than that, I'll catch you next time. Peace out. You're a grown man now, son. I can't have you believing in that hippy-dippy Santa Claus junk. You need to go out and get a real job now. You're dang near 11.